Man-Owned Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And after,
sorry, apparently there's a race going on outside.
I know, you just got the car, got the Indy track going on behind you there and so on. Go outside and just check to see if it's like a Fast and the Furious thing, maybe. There's just all these people standing around blocking your driveway and whatnot. People lined up. Car show going on.
Someone doing donuts, like a pizza guy comes by, like, hey, I gotta get through. Like,
hey, some of us gotta work.
Like, goddamn street racers. Yeah, get out of here, direct. Was that Rob Cohen? Get out of here, Rob Cohen. I think it was.
He was playing that right there. But today we get to go to the almost like the Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, the one that like was almost like that rumor from like literally like before the movie was, you know, I guess the original version of it came out in theaters. They were talking about it for quite some time. Like maybe this was going to end up coming on Blu Ray when it came out. Maybe this was going to be kind of like even released just a little bit later. And then all of a sudden it's just like for like 4 years, it's kind of nothing. And then it was kind of rumors for about the last year plus or so. And then it's like, well, boom, here it is. Like it's coming out, hold on. And I mean, one of the things is like, I hope that if anything, that this actually kind of reignites like that sort of Justice League, just like the storyline that's kind of going on, that like they can kind of keep going in. Because I felt like the second that Zack Snyder stepped away, they're like, Warner Bros. Was like, well, okay, Zack's out of the picture right now, so geez, what are we gonna do? Like, well, maybe we'll just kind of sort of continue stuff. I mean, we got the Aquaman, we got the Wonder Womans, okay, we got that. Let's see, we'll go with that, see where that kind of takes us, and then we'll just start doing some other spin-off stuff, and we'll just see what happens. We'll toss it up in the air. Two-Face flips a coin. We can do that too.
All our business decisions are made. There's that thing in the South Park, like, we must bend to what the economy wants, and then like they're like, one moment, just like, walk in the door, they just hear a chop noise. I got
the guy get the kazoo out.
He has a kazoo, and they just have a chicken like, bail out! It's just like running around like a fucking. I feel like that's Warner Brothers almost has similar like tactics. I think just because. Watching this movie, I mean, I'm not one of those people who flat out. I don't even dislike 2017 Justice League. I like that movie. I liked it more when I first saw it, but over the years, I went from like really liking it to just I like it. I like it enough. But at the same time, watching this, there are certain things that like I understand why all 4 hours didn't go to theaters. I get that. Mm-hmm. But there are other things like, okay, you took this, and this out, but felt the need to throw in this shit about the Russian family.
I will say, I'm so glad they kind of cut out that weird, goofy Russian. There's like, hey, here's this Chernobyl-like town and whatnot. And this must have been just like the cheapest dad. He's like, you know what? There's real estate over there. Someone's got, like, Dad, but that's so far away. Nobody lives out there. No, it's gonna cost me all of like, $5 to have this place, because literally they're giving it away, pretty much giving it away. We're gonna go live out there, and I just felt like it's like, why is there this one random ass like God? I'm not paying none of those Moscow taxes. Let me tell you.
Hopefully, no demonic space bugs come in and fuck with us. You say that every time.
Well, it happened to your great grandfather. Yeah, that's not a real story. That's not what he said.
Who are you to deny Grandpa Sergey? Yeah. No, but the thing is, like, I even like I like the other one. This one I like more. I like this one a lot more. But at the same time, before we go too far into it, I feel like this movie is kind of like making, because there's that period where everyone's like, fuck Zack Snyder. And even though I don't prefer his interpretation of the characters, it's not a god-awful interpretation. I feel like he has his style. He does what he wants to do, regardless of the source material. But I think that he still really does like these characters. He just has his own version of them. You know what I mean? And out of that, I feel like seeing, like, maybe the first two movies, maybe Batman v Superman had a lot of elements that were really rushed. But aside from that, you see where it was leading to. Like, oh, if you, like, trim this thing down to, like, a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie, this could have gone to theaters and probably could have done pretty well.
Yeah, well, it's one of those ones too. It's like, and the thing too, everybody always forgets is Zack Snyder always gets like he's like put up there on the flag, but you always gotta forget it's Christopher Nolan as well too, because he's kind of created like the style and look of this. It's like the mixed match between if you take Zack Snyder directing and Christopher Nolan and combine them together. And Christopher Nolan's he's the producer on every single one. I mean, I'm not saying it's like that, but like it almost feels like it's the Zack Snyder Christopher Nolan universe kind of merged together. But Zack Snyder always seems to carry the torch. He's like, if Christopher Nolan's almost like vice president, he's like, Zack Snyder's always going to get blamed for everything. No one's really going to blame the vice president as much. Like, well, he was good when he was in office, and then like, he became vice president next. And the weirdest thing is like, I remember because like when Justice League came out, like in back, in the original cut and whatnot, it was funny because like every DC fan was like, fucking hey, this movie's great, it's fucking awesome. Like, so what? You know what? I mean, maybe it's like Zack Snyder supposed to be even cooler, but like for what it is, it's sick. And I mean, I loved it. Like, I loved the hell out of that movie. When I saw it, I'm like, dude, the pacing's awesome. There's always an action scene like every 5 to 10 minutes and whatnot. Like, it flows through. I mean, it's only 2 hours, so I guess like of course it's gonna flow real quick. But like I thought that one just like fired on all cylinders for what it was and so on. And most of the time it's like it's the same thing. It's like what a lot of movies is. It's like if I really like a movie and you tell me that there's this extra longer extended cut of it, I'm like, it's only going to make it better in my book probably. So I'm totally down. But the weird thing is once the Zack Snyder cut kind of like came out, I saw like DC fans that would have told you how much they loved Justice League when it first came out, like fucking going like, oh, that movie's fucking stupid. I mean, like, it's so dumb. Like, they have all these mistakes, and like just the CG mustache thing just ruins it for me. I'm like, dude, you talked about this like 2 years ago, how much you loved it. No, that was like my twin brother or something said that. It wasn't real. I just thought it's weird how people like you're talking about in a sense like you're talking about. In a sense, it's just two different edits of like from the same, Justice League material and so on like that. I mean, granted, this one's got way more into it, but it's just weird how like people like turned on it. Like it's almost like I don't even know if it was like a Warner Brothers sort of plan, like, hey, we're gonna turn our own fans against each other.
Maybe.
You remember how the Civil War worked in America? Like, boy, that got some sales going.
I know we also. Well, I feel like here's, I guess, my biggest problem with the 2017 version of Justice League. Mm-hmm. It's Justice League, so it should feel massive. It should feel, because I think before Avengers, I mean, Avengers have been around for a long time, so is Justice League, but common knowledge, I think more people knew about Justice League than Avengers. Mm-hmm. Like, even people who didn't read comics knew of, oh yeah, the thing where Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Captain America, is he one of them? No? All right, whatever. I feel like people just knew that there was a team called the Justice League or the Super Friends or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, when you watch the movie, so it feels weird that like Avengers became the bigger thing and Justice League became kind of the smaller thing. And when the movie came out, it didn't feel like as big or as grand as Batman v Superman or even Man of Steel. Mm-hmm. It felt smaller. It should have felt a lot bigger. It should have felt like the next big step. But it almost felt like, even though the movie moved fast and the action pacing was good, it just did not feel as big as it should be. At least to me. You know what I mean? It just felt like, oh, here's another superhero, as opposed the superhero movie. And watching this version, you could see that Zack Snyder, maybe it's not as big as, say, something like Endgame, but it was bigger than, this was bigger and trying to be more ambitious than, say, the first Avengers,
Yeah. Well, plus, it's like, you kind of think about this, too, is because I feel there's going to be a lot of people out there that are just going to assume that this is like, this version has just been sitting for 3 years straight, like, just like this. And it's like, well, granted, he's been working on it for, like, that whole time. So in that period, I feel like, because there's just moments in there I go, that probably wouldn't have been in the original version, like the original Zack Snyder version. I feel like he's doing stuff in this one to be like, fuck it, we're not only gonna one up Josh Whedon's version, we're gonna one up like the, all the Marvel movies. We're gonna make this as epic as fuck, like, because it has almost that like where it's just like, let's crank up the epicness just a little bit more. Let's add just a little bit more, like, fuck yeah to it, like, and so on. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like, I just feel like I can kind of just sort of see it from the sidelines. It's just like, it's almost that thing if someone like gives you just a lot more extra time, like, because that's almost like a ridiculous amount when you think about, like, hey, you're gonna get an extra 3 years to edit this movie. Who ever has gotten that in their entire life? Nobody has ever gotten like that before. Like, No, not 3 years to make the movie. Literally just 3 years to edit it back together and, maybe add a couple extra scenes here and there.
There is extra scenes and CG they had to finish up with. One of the things they got together I think one of the things Ben Affleck got back in the Batsuit for was the
Martian
what would have
Manhunter?
probably maybe that, but what would have been the nightmare, which was probably gonna be a post-credit sequence, the nightmare sequence when he's talking to Jared Leto as Joker and all that. Like all that stuff was going to, like, at least Jared Leto being there was recently added. 'Cause they realized, you know what? I mean, Batman and Joker never spoke in either of the movies they're in, and it feels kind of weird they never had that moment as arch enemies, but they were both in separate movies, So that was kind of, and also give a chance for Heath Ledger to show he can do more than just act like a cholo. So yeah.
You mean not Heath Ledger, but
Jared Leto.
Jared Leto. Well, because that part you could kind of tell was definitely like new material. Like, I mean, that might have been there, or like maybe like in the script form and so on. But like you could see some of those ones, just like, hey, you guys get together, stand in front of Zach's playroom green screen, and just ham out this scene for a moment, and we'll add that in. I feel like the Martian Manhunter stuff was kind of out there too, because I think that was also that one, because that was never in any of the earlier trailers and so on. I mean, that could have been a surprise or something, but it felt like, shit, we didn't have Martian Manhunter, and people fucking flipped the lid. So add him in there, baby. Like, you know what? He's gonna be Superman's mom for a second, and then he's gonna talk to Bruce later on.
Well, I remember before this movie even came out, there were rumors that the general guy was actually Martian Manhunter. So, I think that to some capacity he was going to have Martian Manhunter in there. Because even when they were first announcing Batman v Superman, he called I don't remember the actor's name, but he's the guy who plays the General / Martian Manhunter in these movies, and he's also the asshole General in the Matrix sequels.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he comes out, I think Deadbolt or which sounds like a DC villain, Deadbolt, or something, but which he came out and said, like, when he first announced Batman v Superman, like, hey guys, we don't have anything to show, but we have something big out here, so coming up. So to help introduce it, I brought someone from Man of Steel, and he has a better voice than me, and he reads but he reads that quote from Dark Knight Returns, like, this is what I want you to remember, Bruce. My hands around your neck. Then the Batman versus Superman symbol came up. People were like, holy fucking shit! So he wanted that guy as part of it for a while, which would lead me to believe that would have totally caught people off guard that he was Martian Manhunter. The only thing that makes me sad about this is they bring up all these interesting things, and maybe we'll see them continued, whether it be a comic book adaptation or like an HBO Max miniseries or something. But it's not going to be exactly what Snyder wanted it to be. But maybe as long as they could take the premise and run with it,
Well, that's what I'm kind of hoping, though, is that this whole experience might shed just like a new light on just Justice League and the Zack Snyder universe, and kind of reignite it so that they can be like, fuck it, let's actually make the sequel to it that it kind of needs, because we have it so set up. Like, I feel like that's kind of like what HBO and Warner Brothers and all that stuff's kind of putting this forward, is that, like, you know what, if this does extremely well, which it seems like it kind of does, because I feel like there's people out there talking about it that, like, would not have been, like, they aren't really comic book fans and so on like that, and they're like, shit, there's a Zack Snyder thing out there, like, this sounds fucking awesome, and it's like, huh, you know what I mean? Like, well, because generally it seems like, let's be honest, when there's ever an extended cut or something like that, you don't hear just the average audience being like, dude, there's this extended cut of it. That's mostly only the people that are in the movies that are going out there being like, oh my god, they got this Mel Gibson movie that has a completely alternative ending to it. And someone's like, huh, well, that's interesting. Why does it have an alternative ending? What do you mean, why does it have it? It had a different director switch at some point. Like, that's what it is. But the fact that, you can have just, a regular Joe be interested in it. And I think also that, in a sense, because of the marketing strategy that Warner Brothers and HBO kind of used on it, where before it would have been like, hey, by the way, like, it would be like a little tag on like a Blu Ray disc, like an extra 25 minutes, added. And that would have kind of been it, wouldn't have been pushed real hard.
Yeah, that, plus they actually treated like, no, this is a different movie. But the thing about it, if you really watch this movie and focus on what's important to this overall story, it's basically the same thing as the 2017 movie. They just really expand on a lot of things. And I think that, in all honesty, I get why they did this 4-hour thing, because basically this is also more of an experiment. It's a couple of things. It's, okay, let Zack Snyder make the movie he wanted to make, and then while he's at it, let's throw in every scene that would have been a deleted scene, and while we're at that, let's actually also add in, like, more mid-credit, post-credit, like, teaser-type stuff that would have been in there. Maybe it wouldn't have been in there, but... Because it's streaming, you have all time to watch this thing. You're not sitting in a theater to watch it. So,
well, yeah,
I honestly,
in a theater, you'd get like you get like 3 screenings a day of this movie, if that even.
So I'm thinking like what probably would have happened if I had to guess. Maybe we would have got some special 4-hour cut if you got it on Blu Ray. But I think that if Zack Snyder didn't have that tragedy in his family and got to make the movie he wanted to make, by the time it was edited down, he probably would have had a 2.5 hour, 2 hour 45, 3 hour movie that going out there, and people probably would have said, you know what, that was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. You know, like I think that would have been kind of, because it seems to be kind of redemption for Batman v Superman for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it goes and so on. And yeah, I think it is definitely one of those ones, like, let's just give it the super extendo. It's almost like if they decided to release, like, The Watchmen, like the third director's cut version of it, you know, where it is almost 4 hours too. Like, just said, hey, we're going to release that as our main version now. You know, because I almost feel like this is the one, like, this is probably going to be the version that replaces sort of the other Justice League. The other Justice League one's going to be the one that almost probably disappears for a while, and then all of a sudden you'll see it kind of later on, be like, hey, remember there was this other version of Justice League? And then they'll kind of re-release it that way.
I guess if you were to release this movie, let's just say they were ballsy and they did release this as a 4-hour movie. My problem, not with so much with the runtime, but more of just the pacing of the story. My only real problem with that would be if, because, you know, after when you have the epilogue, after they defeat Steppenwolf, and then they kind of have the whole monologue from Victor's father, and they're having all the scenes, you see everyone kind of moving forward in their lives. It has this really upbeat, optimistic feeling, and you're like, okay, all right, yeah, right on. This is what you should be feeling in a superhero movie. You shouldn't be feeling dour, dark, and depressed. You should be feeling like things are going to be looking up now. And then you get to the Lex Luthor Deathstroke scene. And then it's just like, okay, all right. You know, that would have been a teaser like it was in the other one. Like, oh, now we're doing the nightmare stuff. Wait, Superman went evil? And this and that? And we don't have all this good we built up all this optimism, and now we're just crashing back down, and then it's just like, it was a nightmare, but hey, we have a chance to fix it. And that would have been like, I think that whole nightmare scene, even though I like all that stuff, I think that should have been placed somewhere else, or placed better. You know what I mean? Just because that's like a weird note to end on, even if it ends with like Martian Manhunter saying, yo, sorry I woke you up, but yeah, I just like
just him creepily standing over the bed.
Yeah, well, I'd like to imagine, like, after all of that, like, after Batman just had, like, a, you know, just, like, this weird nightmare, there's a green man floating outside his lake house for no reason. He's like, all right, later. He's like, all right, I guess I'm going to go back to sleep now.
He's like, I don't know, I might have worse nightmares now. I'm not too sure. Yeah, so I think that, like, because, you know, there's a couple nightmare scenes throughout it, you know, because Barry has his and so on like that. Like, I think they almost should have spread those throughout there and kind of had, like, the nightmare scenes almost been, like, this is the best way, I'm going to use a Watchmen reference. It should have been, like, the pirate scenes where you kind of just spread them out, you know what I mean? And you kind of get a little bit more of that tale as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that would have been more useful rather than just little snippets and then one giant chunk of it at the very end, which that whole scene is great. And that's also a really cool oddball team. It's Batman, Cyborg, Flash, Mira, Deathstroke, and Joker. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that if it was the comics, there probably would have been like one or two more like oddball characters, maybe like the Atom or like, you know, like Vixen or someone like that.
Yeah.
But I think for the characters they have set up, that's a interesting kind of like weird mixed match team right there.
No, yeah, I actually thought that was actually pretty darn neat too. And at first when they showed like the Flash, I didn't think that was the Flash. I thought that was gonna be like, is that gonna be like a Jason Todd or something like that? And then it was just like, oh, well, Joker's talking about killing him, so I'm pretty sure that's not Jason Todd standing right there. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's the Flash. Once you showed like a close shot of him, because he just didn't say anything at first. and he was in like that armored suit, and it was kind of red, so it had like a darker red, so it had almost more of like, I felt like that or a Red Robin or something like that.
When he comes through that suit in the in Batman v Superman through the time vortex or
Oh,
whatever.
that's right. I guess he isn't in that one.
Yeah, a friend of mine who I saw the movie with, who he likes DC, but he doesn't read the comics. He read like miscellaneous comics. He mainly knows it from the animated movies and the Arkham games.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that was Jason Todd that came through the vortex. I'm like, no, that was Flash. That's Flash. Like, really? That's Flash? Like, yeah. Well, what was it? I don't know. We have to wait and see if that movie comes out. Then like, well, I guess we're never gonna find out.
Yeah.
But like, they come back around. I guess that's the thing, because we're getting like teasers for movies that we might never see now, but at the same time, Warner Brothers is very reactionary, so I can see them actually moving forward with this in one form or another. Maybe not everything Snyder wanted to do, but to a certain extent.
Well, Snyder might get like that, almost like Francis Ford Coppola, like Godfather 2 type deal, where it'd be like, yo, we want you to make this, and we won't get in your way whatsoever. You know what I mean? They might actually give him something like that, because it could be that one where Zack Snyder, because, almost in a sense, if this movie does really well, Zack Snyder will have, like, the power to kind of probably be like, you know what? Hey, if you want me to do this, and that's what the people want, you got to let me have full reign. And,
yeah, well...
And I even think by this stand, because here's, like, this is the other thing. This is, like, almost like the other, like, almost one of the most ballsiest things I feel about this movie more than the movie itself, is the fact that the movie is in full screen the whole time. And when I was watching, I'm like, well, that must be because he shot it in IMAX. Because like when you would get like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, or the second one and the third one, I don't think it's on the first one they have IMAX, but and like when you're watching it, because that was the first time I ever watching a movie, at least at home on Blu Ray, and you'd be like, oh, the movie cuts from being in like normal 240 aspect ratio widescreen, and then it goes to like a weird, it's not really full screen, but it's kind of like a partial, like not super wide, but something like that. And those scenes always look so much better anyways, because I just remember going like, why don't they just shoot the whole movie like that? Because that actually looks so much better when it goes to the IMAX camera compared to like the regular camera. It's not the regular camera's bad, but like IMAX in comparison just looks so nice. And I mean, when you're watching it like on streaming, you don't get that same feel as if it was a Blu-ray, because I feel like this movie will look really amazing once it finally comes out like on Blu-ray or 4K and so on like that, so it can actually look real decent. Because it just, when you stream it, it always just has like the feel like you're watching on DVD, like you got it from like Blockbuster or something. But, it's one of those ones like the whole idea that like, this is just what I think about. It's just like, they're like, we're letting the director preserve. He shot in IMAX, and he wants it to be full screen and so on like that. Because you just know that, I'm surprised HBO and Warner Brothers, their probably call lines and email lines were probably blown up to the max, being like, your movie's all jacked up on here. I can't figure it out. Like, what the fuck's wrong with your settings? You know that there are so many people that probably call in and say, why is this movie? Because, I think people get it if the movie's from like 1940s, that, oh, it's in full screen. Okay, that makes sense and so on like that. But like, literally, when was the last time it is not a made-for-TV movie, I guess, of back in the day, but like a full-on like theatrical movie has been full screen?
Yeah,
other than like that Apollo 19 movie, that's the only one I can think of. But I don't think everything in that movie was full screen, but it had full screen moments in it because it was supposed to be like 1969 or whatever.
I don't know. My guess would be some kind of found footage movie, if that. But I could actually like. We're dealing with the response to that. They'd be like, you know what? We're gonna get a lot of stupid questions about this. Let's like make some bots to just go out and have like pre answers ready for these.
Well, it's just weird because it doesn't even explain it like when the movie starts off. Because I'll say this, it even threw me off when I first started up. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with HBO? Like, it's all jacked up because it's like, it's so, because nowadays you expect like not only the movie to be like a 185 aspect ratio, you expect it to be like Star Wars, like 240, like super wide. And that's kind of the general go-to for, big epic movies. So the fact that like it's almost like you go back in time and it's just like, oh, let's make it look like a made-for-TV movie. Because I will say like the first half an hour I'm watching it, it almost had like kind of a hokier look because of that. Like it felt like you were getting like some long-lost movie from like 1997 or something like that. Like, oh, that's what the Zack Snyder cut was. He actually made this when he was a kid before he even made anything else.
He started real early.
And I just think it's like one of those ones, like, it's weird to like go with that, because I just feel like that's got to be It's not like the worst thing ever, but it almost made me. It reminded me like almost like when you were a kid and you asked your parents to pick up a movie or whatnot, and when they grabbed the DVD, they didn't grab the DVD widescreen version; they grabbed the full screen one.
Well, you don't want to. It looks like it cut off part of the screen. Like, no, you don't get it.
Yeah, it's just like, so that's what it kind of gives you a feeling, because like it sounds weird. You almost need to pull out like a CRT TV full screen one to really get the full value out of this movie. I feel like that's what it was made for. It's like, wait a sec, you need your old 36-inch Mitsubishi, and then you'll get like the full experience of this film the way the director intended.
Well, I read something before the movie came out that it was going to be like an IMAX ratio, and then all the trailers and ads, it was in that ratio, so I was kind of prepared for it going in. But no, I can understand how that would be really confusing for people, especially just like, wait, what the fuck is everything else? Because I guess because everything's widescreen this day and age, so it's like, why is not this? But at the same time, I could see them possibly correcting that whenever this comes out on Blu Ray or digital download.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just, it's just so weird. I mean, it still always blows me away that this day and age IMAX cameras still shoot in like full screen anyways. You know, you just kind of think it's funny because now it's like, there's like TV manufacturers like, oh, are we going back to full screen? Maybe people don't like widescreen anymore. Maybe the gimmick's over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wonder like what it is that like, I mean, well, I think one of the things that got this movie made was, for years they were talking about it happening, and I guess that was one of the, I wonder how that came about. I wonder how much it was already shot in IMAX before, because most of the movie was already, I want to say a good portion of this was already shot and ready to use, but like Joss Whedon apparently only used 30% of it, and it shows when you watch this. Even though it has the same basic story, you kind of see that like, oh well, this is definitely a different take or a different variation on the same scene. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that really helped seal this to happen, because people were talking about the Snyder Cut for a while, and they'd have interviews with Jason Momoa or whoever. It's like, oh yeah, there is a Snyder Cut. I've seen it and it's awesome, but it's too bad that it's probably never going to be seen by anybody else. And then you also had Kevin Smith on one of his shows. He said, because he had a cameo in Star Wars, the newest one, mm-hmm. and he was talking to crew members from that, and they said they worked on Justice League before Joss Whedon got on it, and they talked about some of the differences there. And some of those differences don't make it into this movie, but it's interesting to know that some of the things that almost happened or things they were prepared for, because there's the whole scene. They said there's one version where there's a scene where Alfred's talking to Superman. Well, there's another version where apparently it was going to be like Green Lanterns CG'd in there, and they shot both versions mm-hmm. because they weren't sure which one they're going to go with. But I guess they went more with Superman in the long run. But apparently they had green lights to shine and reflect off him.
Huh, that's interesting.
So there's things like that. And then they explained like what his Justice League trilogy was going to be. And he says there's a couple different versions of the movie. There's one, which I think this is the one we got. It's similar, but mm-hmm. it's longer, and it went into more detail. And then there's another one where it's basically setting up more of a sequel where this one happens. Then they go off to fight on Apocalypse. They lose. Third one, Earth is taken over. Characters are already dead, but they're trying to go back in time to stop it from happening.
Yeah, they're like, Barry, do that thing that you're not supposed to do. But he's like, well, but bad things are going to happen. Barry, go back in time. But one time I tried to save my mother and it ruined everything. Well, Barry, maybe this time it's going to work out better because it's not your mother you're saving, huh? Did you ever think about that?
You selfish little fuck.
Yeah.
Start running, nerd. I do like how Aquaman's at this point where you can just bully around the Flash.
I think that's like the thing too, because you always just kind of like, I know that like that's the whole point of like the Jason Momoa Aquaman. I love Jason Momoa Aquaman. I think that the Aquaman movie, that's also one of my other favorite like superhero ones and so on like that. But just I think it's just one of those ones that are like, Aquaman needs a new image. We just need him to be almost like a tough bully. He's a good guy, but like really he's gonna be the guy who's just gonna say shit to everybody. And he's always drinking and riding the back of dirty pickup trucks.
No, they went out of their way since Injustice came out. They've been going out of their way so hard to like manifest. I mean, he's already, because people are like, I'm Aquaman, I wear orange, hi guys. That was his like image to the general public. Like, no, we got to really emphasize the man. When they have taught the title, it could almost be like, Aqua. And then in size 36 font, man, you know? So.
Because, yeah, that was the Justice. It was like they made him the most brutal character in that game.
His attack where he like stabs somebody, calls a wave, lifts him up, like it's fucking dinner time, and a big shark comes by.
Yeah, like they're like we got to make him that cool. You know what I mean? Everybody else thinks everybody else is cool, but not Aquaman. He needs a change in style.
So they're trying to do that. And like, how do we do that? Well, how about we have him be a bully to fucking, because he's fine with everybody else for the most part. He might talk a little bit of shit here and there, but he likes to bully the Flash, which, I don't know, there's something about that. Like, he hasn't done anything wrong, but he's just like, this fucking nerd.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to go after him because I can, I will. You know? And, but yeah, it's like, that's the thing, though. It's like, that Aquaman, though, no matter what, I think by far is like, almost like, that's like the ultimate takeaway from this whole Justice League experience, if there is anything, is like, that almost might even change Aquaman. Like, in 20 years from now, people probably won't have, like, in a sense, the gay Aquaman, like, thought anymore. Because that was always how Aquaman was portrayed, as, like, the gay character. Though, not like he ever acted like that, like, in there, but, like, they always just made him, I guess they just saw, like, a screenshot from, like, the 68 show or whatever.
Riding a seahorse or whatever.
Yeah. They didn't see the part afterwards where he was murdering that guy, like, in the back alley of, you know, the underwater bar, but...
Or like cutting off his own arm to save his son or whatever.
Yeah, well, because even like you think about because even back then in like the late '80s, early '90s, then they were still trying to be like, shit, we got to get rid of this Aquaman image. Let's give him a fucking mullet. He cuts off his own arm to save his son. You know what I mean?
He looks kind of like the underwater road warrior to a certain extent.
Yeah, like, you know, they were going brutal there. Like, I feel like at some point that's almost like a cool, like, I feel like I would love to see that look kind of come back for Aquaman. I really wish actually the mullet look came back for everybody, you know? Even in this one, too, it's like, you know, Superman, it's like, it's cool that they give him the black suit in this version, which I think definitely is much more fitting, but I'm like, I remember before when they had, like, the mustache problem, I'm like, how was it a mustache problem? Just give him a fucking full beard to go with that mustache, and you got the Death and Return of Superman look.
The reason because of the mustache thing was because, I mean, I guess maybe they could have thrown a prosthetic beard on there.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though.
Beard.
Well, you just,
yeah.
I mean, you know, most movies, when you see somebody with a beard, they don't actually have a beard, you know? Mm-hmm. Only, like, those certain ones where, like, the actor's like, no, I must grow the beard. It's the only, the beard is my acting ability.
I just like how Paramount was so petty, like, nah, the mustache stays.
I think they should have just left the mustache in general. Like, oh shit, like, has he been growing that mustache the whole time he's dead? Like, who's been shaving him? Like, if he just busted out of there with, like, a Freddie Mercury mustache, I just feel like it's like, I would have just left that. I just would have owned up to it, been like, yeah, Superman's got a mustache. Get over it. And a mullet. Give him the goddamn Superman mullet.
It's gonna make selling the action figures way easier. Just like have the same mold, you just gotta paint a little mustache on there. Yeah. I was gonna say, well, something else they do about this is they expand on the characters, but it all still seems like it could fit in the realm. Like I honestly think, with the exception of Cyborg's dad dying, everything else kind of still fits into place with everything else that's happened so far. And it annoys me because there was a period after Justice League didn't do good. Like, yeah, we're taking a break from anything Justice League. We'll still do DC things, but Justice League, we're not sure it's so profitable. No, it's profitable. You guys just keep fucking with it.
Yeah.
It's way easier. Trust me, it's way easier. I know that we're not execs, so we don't really know what was happening behind the scenes, but when you see the things they took out of this movie and the things they put in, like, you want to make a movie only 2 hours long, or not even into 2 hours, like an hour and 15 minutes. You take out some of the, like, Cyborg father stuff, as well as some of the really great Barry Allen and his father stuff. Mm-hmm. But you feel the need to put in all this bullshit with a Russian family. I know I already said that, but I mean, that blows my mind. And yeah, it's not like those characters become anybody. You know?
No, like, that's, I mean, it's like that's probably, like, if there's really, like, one, like, that's, like, it sounds like the weirdest part, but that's, like, the major difference, I feel like, that I will say between that and this one, is just having that weird Russian family that literally has absolutely nothing to do with, you know, like, the whole movie. Like, I'm so glad that that's almost taken out just to kind of do that, where everything else is almost like you get the extended cuts, you get the extra story, you get the elements, you know, kind of thrown in there, some other pieces and so on. Like, you really could, it's like almost like one of those ones, like, I don't feel like this, like, totally eliminates the original Justice League. I feel like if you were on a time frame and you're like, well, I want to watch some Justice League, but I only got 2 hours, you could go with that one, and it gives you the overall story. But if you were like, hey, I want to get like some extra background details and some, more like foreshadowing and so on, then you got the 4-hour cut.
If you wanted to like shorten this movie up and get it to theaters, I think you could. You could do a 2-hour, 45-minute, or a 3-hour version. All you really got to do, and I'm not saying this to just be trendy and do the thing everyone does, make fun of the slow-mo shit for Zack Snyder, but there's a lot of scenes of unnecessary slow-mo, and that's not me just trying to dogpile. I just think one or two of them would work fine, but I think since it's a streaming thing, it's like, okay, we can throw in whatever we want because it's streaming. You can come back to it later if you want.
Well, I think what it is, too, is I think it's just like Zach just gets full, like, reign on this movie, so he's like, you know what? My fans like the slow-mo. Everybody likes it when Zach does the slow-mo. Shit, when I walk into work, I'm going in slow-mo,
See this fucking sesame seed? Slow-mo.
He's like, and like, you ever notice how Alfred Hitchcock talked in slow-mo? Well, that's what Zach does, but he doesn't in the movies.
you see Lois Lane buying coffee in slow-mo? Because there's like, the thing is, there's 4 character introductions where it's slow-mo with like a somber song playing over. You have that with like with Aquaman. You have Flash saving someone. You have Lois Lane. You have, I want to say there's another one that's kind of getting by me, but there's like 3 or 4 different moments where it's like somber, slow-mo, and like if you trim that out, that's probably 10 minutes right there. Like if you could just get to the point of what they're doing. And that's not me. I understand. For this 4-hour cut, it makes sense. But if you want to if you were to make like the 3-hour version or whatever, you could get there by trimming some of that stuff and maybe some excess scenes here and there,
Well, yeah, because those are those scenes that if this movie would have came out like the Zack Snyder version back, in 2017 or whatever, I don't think that that many slow-mos and the weird slow songs and all that kind of goofy stuff would have been in there. I think that would have been the one where Warner Bros. Like, yo, get this shit out of here. It's taking up valuable screen time for like people to come buy this movie or see this movie again.
Even though I do prefer this one over the Joss Whedon version, I will say I understand he's trying to give more of an epic sense of like, these are modern day gods. These are modern day, like, this is modern day mythology. So I get why maybe some of the song choices. That being said, I'm like, you could have maybe used the White Stripes for a minute, like you did in the other one, or like Gary Clark Jr., like doing like a Beatles cover. You could have maybe used some of that just to lighten it up for make it fun. But at the same time, I thought, because that's another thing out of the Joss Whedon one. People might say it was too poppy, but I liked seeing Aquaman go and save a dude while Icky Thump by White Stripes is playing.
No, yeah, that scene does work pretty well like this. See, that's the thing, is this one doesn't take away. It's not like this is like the version I feel like you see this one, you're like, well, why would you even watch the other one? I feel like you could still watch the other one because it's like, it's got like, it's a cool to see a lot of different like alternative cuts. It's almost like that version of Mallrats that there is out there where it uses like all the alternative cuts and so on. Like it doesn't like at all replace the original Mallrats one, but it's neat to see it kind of be like shown in a different light in a sense.
I liked and speaking of that, kind of alternate cuts and expansion on other cuts, I really like what they did with Barry Allen in this because, I'll say when he first comes in, tell me if you felt this way. When they first show him, and he's going to that interview for the dog place.
Yeah.
That right there, I'm not going to lie, I felt like I was, like how when Michael Bay tries to do like comedy in his movies, and it's not just like coincidental. Like there's something about weird, cringy, awkward humor dialed up to 11, which Michael Bay likes because it's in every one of his movies, even the movies based on true stories.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to count Pain and Gain. I really like that movie. I'm not counting that one.
Yeah.
I think that's the one movie you could actually call a comedy. But there's something about that scene when he's going in, like, resume. It's like, I don't know what was in my pocket. Like, I got like a trash monster in there or something. Anyway, like, all that was, like, so fucking cringy. It's like, you're not going to be like this the whole fucking movie, are you? And then once he actually goes back to his lair and you have the expanded version of the scene with him and Bruce Wayne, from there on in, he was great. But I also like the scene with his dad. That scene, even though it was worked in the original movie, the original cut, something about it was way more impactful in this one.
Yeah, it's just because it's a little bit more expanded. Yeah, I will say that probably was the weakest scene in this entire movie is that dog scene, and I think that's supposed to be Iris in there. Which this is the thing I can't figure out. She literally, how does she get into such a bad car accident? She's driving like a '50s vehicle. That car does not have that grand of acceleration. I mean, and like she pulls out like It's like she's only like 15 feet away from running into that semi-truck. Like she's probably crashing into it in real life would be like 10 miles per hour. I'm pretty sure it would not look like she crashed into it at like 120.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't put that much thought into it.
Well, that was all I was thinking. Because
a nice car.
The semi-truck's coming down the road. She's literally parked at the corner. I mean, how hard?
She didn't have a lot of speed.
Yeah, and she's in like the oldest vehicle. I mean, maybe if she was in like a rocket car or something like that, I would believe it. But like, yeah, that's the one scene though. I will say that's probably the weakest scene in there, and that's almost the one where I feel like you literally could chop that one out. And I would say that's probably fine. That scene's kind of goofy, and it's not terrible. It's not like it's like those ones like that scene ruined it for me. It's like a CG like mustache being taken out. Like I can't watch it anymore. No, I don't mean it like that, but. It
could have been.
It's just goofy and it's kind of dumb and it's almost unrealistic, if that makes sense too.
If there's one scene, I guess one hero introduction to cut off, it's probably that. What you could have done, and this isn't like Zack Snyder would be like, if he heard this, oh, all right, tell me, guy who made drunk Batman, tell me what you would do,
Oh, shit, he's actually listening to us. Okay, come, we got Zack on the phone right now. Hold on. Robin, lay out the red carpet.
He's not fucking here. Still, he's here in spirit.
I want his voice to be able to go across some nice carpet right there and, kind of feel the tones, cruise along. Get that chili stain out of there, Robin. Jesus, I told you to get these washed like 3 years ago.
You're the one that keeps fucking spilling shit on it. Anyway, but it's one of those things where that whole scene, you could have probably cut the scene with him. I guess they wanted to show him meeting Iris and kind of give an early introduction to his powers. You could have just probably cut to him, almost what the Whedon cut did. I know I say I prefer this one way over the Whedon cut, but at the same time, there's a few things like I kind of get sort of why you did this, kind of. But you could have just had Bruce Wayne talking about him again, showed the security camera footage, and then cut to him meeting his dad, and then their meeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this whole scene, it did go on like a bit longer, mainly because all the slow-mo and then just the awkward humor. But it's by no means really brings the movie down.
No, it's just weird. I think that's all.
Cyborg is a character they did a lot with in this. I think I get why Ray Fisher was pissed off at Joss Whedon, because he really shortchanged Cyborg.
Yeah, well, that's because I remember even the other one I kind of thought too. Even though I liked all the Cyborg stuff in the Joss Whedon one, it was one of those ones. It feels like Cyborg could be kind of expanded on, and in this one it definitely is. Even though this one though, it does make Cyborg more of that like, fuck you, Dad, always at work. If you just weren't working all the time, be like, son. Do you like this fucking nice place we live at and all this nice shit and that nice Leatherman jacket you have that's from Under Armour? Yeah. Guess what? The other kids at school don't have an Under Armour jacket. Just letting you know. Yeah, because I know the guy at Under Armour because we help technology there. That's what we do at Star Labs. So yeah, maybe you should think about your dad having to work to save the fucking universe sometime, and he doesn't always have time to go see your fucking football game. Just saying.
I'll say though that is always a plot point. That's always been the plot point for Cyborg.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, because back in the day, that story's not like as redundant as it is nowadays. Like nowadays, I just feel like we see that it was like I think it got played out really bad throughout like the '90s and early 2000s of like there's dad's not there. The Disney dad classic syndrome, or like Jingle All the Way. I mean, there's so many places. Hook.
The two, my two go-tos, because there are times where it's like, maybe you could make room in the middle ground for it, but Jingle All the Way, definitely, because he does all this work to give the toy, and he gives it away to the man he hates most.
Yeah.
And the man who tried to kill the kid just 5 minutes ago. There's that. And then you also have, like, in Hook, which is like, we talked about this only a few weeks ago, but still, there's the part where he's on a business call, and the kids come running it. It's like it's a house with like 18 rooms. These fucking kids got to come like trampling in, to the room where he's
yelling
on a business
and
call,
jumping and you know.
and the mom is like just sitting there, not saying, "Kids, let's take this into the other room," just sitting there letting it happen. And like one of the kids does something to fall down and cut the cord. He says, "You just killed our whole fucking family, you little shit. We're poor now." And then the wife is all like, "Peter." He's like, "You're right. I fucked up." Like, no. You should have fucked. I'm just, yeah.
Fucking Jack fucked up. Let's be honest.
Jack the son? Yeah.
Yeah, or yeah.
Don't let me blow bubbles in my chocolate milk.
Yeah, well, that's the only thing about this one. This one has a little bit, like, not so bad, but there's just a little bit, like, I'm angry, Dad. Like, son, I made you the most powerful guy ever. You could, like, literally do anything you ever want on a computer. It's like, yeah, whatever. Jimmy's dad at least was there when he got his iMac.
He got his iMac?
We
got you an iMac, son.
Nobody has
to be there for the
like
unboxing.
Yours. It literally was created from space. Big whoop, space. Sounds like a place you would go, Dad. Nothing out there.
Well, I just thought it was, I get what you're saying with that, but I just thought they did a good job with showing his powers. Being from like, oh, he's the half robot guy with a laser blaster to, yeah, he can hack into all this shit. Mm-hmm. He is one of the most powerful characters in DC continuity now, and really emphasizing that and showing the good he does do with it, like showing like he's taking money from the overall market and adding into people who are struggling and having trouble getting by.
Well, that scene I thought was kind of like that. Like, son, I said you could go do it. You can't just go. Where'd you get that money from? I don't know. Somebody else's bank account. Like, you can't, son. That's literally theft.
From some Bezos. I don't fucking know.
I don't fucking. Dad, you gave me powers. I'm gonna fucking use them. You know, yeah, because that scene I thought was like one of those ones. Like, I get what they're doing, but I'm like, you know. That's probably like not the right thing. That's like not the right. That's literally like going to rob a bank. I mean, I know it's like a Robin Hood kind of tactic thing, but sometimes it's that thing where it's like, is that really like the superhero-y thing to do? Is just to rob from somebody else to give this.
And that lady ends up just like, how'd you take this much money?
And then who knows? And also she's like, she won a contest. Well, she might go and blow all that money now. It'll have like that lottery effect, like when real poor people win the lottery, and then it's like 6 months later, somehow, some way, they ran out of it all, and you're like, well, yeah, because they didn't earn it, so now they're like, they just blew it on stupid shit.
Well, it's also like one of those things. I got what they were trying to do with that, and I appreciate it, because especially since they gave him more to do. There was like, in the original one, he had like 1 or 2 scenes of moping around, mm-hmm. and then he shoots like a laser blast once or twice, and then he's trying to remove the mother boxes from each other, and he doesn't really, just like, I gotta plug into it, mm-hmm. That's all. Where this one, I feel like he was doing a lot more, and yeah, he was. I mean, in all honesty, if you look at him, everybody else has a cool power and isn't affected, but he is the only one that looks like a robot, and just like, I can't even fucking, I have a dick no more, I can't even jerk off anymore, so it's one of those things where
you just gotta use your mind and you can do it. Like, believe me, I programmed it all in there for you.
You just gotta look under the right folder, okay? All right, it's not the first thing you see on the desktop, all right?
I didn't want to put it on your desktop because I'm afraid that once you found it, you wouldn't use anything else.
You gotta go hunting for it,
You're 17 years old. I know you talk like you're like 42, but you're literally like the oldest guy in this team, though somehow, some way, you're the youngest guy too at the same time.
Don't ask me how that happened. Well, also on top of that, it's like, that's why he's getting all those football scholarships. He's a 42-year-old guy just elbowing and slamming fucking 17-year-olds in the throat.
But no,
I think he's how is he? How
no, he's only 17. It's just the way he talks in there. He has like such like a sophisticated, like, he just, like, let's be honest, even the smartest 17-year-old sometimes always still gonna be kind of a goof. Where he talks like he's this like scientist guy. He talks more sophisticated than like his dad, who's been working in science for years almost. Like he just has this thing like he's been working like in like some kind of like space base for the last 30 years, but he happens to be 17.
Yeah. Now, well, I get why he was going back to this. I guess why he was pissed off at Joss Whedon because he significantly cut that character down. He has a lot more to do in this film. I even like that little thing they add with like the other arms come out, like backup arms to shoot shit or punch shit while he's like busy facing something head on.
Yeah, no, that's definitely cool too. I mean, granted, like there's an extra 2 hours so you can fit all these things in there. I feel like that's the thing about Joss Whedon. It's like when you only have like a 2 hour time, because that's probably like I think a lot of those things is that once Zack Snyder's not there, Warner Brothers kind of says, like, you know what, could you just go in there and just make it like a 2 hour, like, just a wham, bam, boom, like, get it done with, brighten the colors up a little bit, Like, I feel like it wasn't necessarily like, hey, this is Joss Whedon's, like, vision. It's more like I came in, they gave me assignment, and I filled out the numbers and called it, good.
That's how I take it, too. I think that's almost how he presented
I think it was more like Warner Brothers was like, hey, we just want an experienced director. Here's our agenda. Can you just fulfill this? Here's the footage. Chop it together and meet these parameters. So I think that's sort of it. And I think people need to sort of make sure they look at it in an open mind thing like that, because I think it's just really easy to like hate that version when you see this one. You're like, well, yeah, because one guy has ultimate freedom. One guy's coming in to save the day, in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the whole thing with Whedon. I mean, I don't really even know the whole situation, but. I feel like that there is like some dumb things they added that didn't need to be there. I do like the color correction in Whedon's film. I wish these movies weren't as muted.
Well, because I do like the vibrant hair that like Mara has, and I like the like just some of the looks. Like just I think that extra bit of color in there that makes it look more superhero like though.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, just looking at not because the Snyder cut version, the cover's black and white, but I mean, just look at like the Justice League title on like HBO Max. They're all very bright and colorful and popping out. It's just more noticeable that way. Where here, it's all very muted. But still, I mean, that being said, I still prefer the director's cut on this, and I think that there's something about like. I feel like a big part of it, because people want to always blame like Zack Snyder for putting so much into one movie. But in all honesty, I can honestly see that being I could see that actually being Warner Brothers saying, okay, we want to catch up with Marvel. So try to just jam all these characters in there, get it out like in a teaser, do this, do that, you know what I mean? I can honestly see him trying to meet their mandate. And then when that falls through, then be like, Zach, you fucked up. Like, well, you told me to tease this stuff so we can get this. Okay, whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Trying to, like, make them happy, but at the still same time follow through with his vision.
Yeah, almost like a Spider-Man 3 type thing, where it's just like, you had one idea going like, hey, could you jam this in there, too, while you're at it?
Let's actually cover, I want to mention the Fourth World, like New Gods for a minute. Like, I thought they did a good job with, I know that, I didn't really like Steppenwolf in the 2017 version just because he was just ominous, angry bad guy, and that's, I wasn't expecting anything else though. But here, I thought they did a good job of like his dialogue is hardly different, but just the facial expressions he has. And the guy in the mocap suit or the animators, however they did it. Mm-hmm. When he was talking to Desaad and he almost looked pitiful, like he was pleading. Like, you can see in his eyes, like, the fear and also the regret of him fucking up and trying to screw over Darkseid at some point in time. Like, there's something just that much more kind of made him, like, not a sympathetic character, but a little bit more of kind of like a, I don't want to say relatable, but you kind of understood him just a little bit more.
I picture Steppenwolf just like, hey, he's relatable. Like, it's like almost like an ad in like a sitcom. His arms crossed, he's leaning back.
Look at his like H.E.R. Geiger outfit, like the whole like Lovecraftian like thing. His suit was even different too. It had that weird metal, like all those metal like blades kind of flip open up and down randomly here and there.
Yeah, well, and those are those kind of things where it's like when you got the 3 years to put the movie together, you can add all these extra details that you would never have had time for. But I do think they bring them out really well. I think yeah, the rest of like the kind of like the New Gods crew when they kind of show them, because they kind of tease him throughout there, and Darkseid kind of appears, and like they bring him in that flashback where they have like the ancient battle where it has, and was Zeus in the last version when they
was
okay.
It was Zeus. Yeah, I thought it was cool that Ares they just mention Ares is the one that made the shot, and I think it's kind of cool they acknowledge that, because before it was just like, oh, he lost, or Steppenwolf lost, whatever. But this one, they actually show Ares. So, you guys are making the connection to Wonder Woman. It took Ares to bring him down.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really neat. I felt like they kind of expand on certain things there.
He really fucked up that Green Lantern. Not just like, it wasn't just before, like, whack him, he's off screen, then the ring flies away. It's like, he fucked him up.
Oh, yeah, he went to town on that, too. It's weird, because this movie kind of has a rated R, but, like, I don't know, I didn't feel like, there's a couple a little bit more, like, slightly violent parts, and, of course, Batman says, fuck the Joker, in a sense, or I'm gonna kill you when I get back, or, what the hell he say? He's like, I'm gonna kill you.
He says, like, when I kill you, make no mistake, I will fucking kill you.
Yeah. Which almost, I will say, that's like one of the parts where you guys say, like, that doesn't sound like a Batman line as much. I'd be like, no, you know what? You're going away again. I feel there's some good in you. We just need to work these things out.
Well, here's the thing. Like, preferably, does Batman kill people? No. Whatever next cinematic adaptation, hopefully, the Robert Pattinson movie, hopefully he's not killing people. But we kind of know that's what Snyder has him do by this point.
Yeah.
So now it's by that, and then by that point, if you're in like the future and everything's already fucked up,
yeah.
Why is it a big deal if he's killing Joker by now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not really complaining about that too much, I mean, I just think it's kind of funny when you just see that kind of stuff in there, and like they hit real hard on it, I mean, like, because I know there's so many people out there, they love what I always call him Punisher Batman. People want to see Batman done just like almost if he was the Punisher. Like, so many people want that, and I feel like that really like owns up for that kind of like take of Batman.
Well, there's people who their entire knowledge of Batman is informed off of the Burton movie, like Adam West, and then the Burton movies, and then Joel Schumacher leading up after that. So when I was telling I don't talk about comic book stuff with my dad too often or anything like that, but somehow it came up in conversation that Batman doesn't kill. It's like, Batman kills people. Like, no, he doesn't. He's like, oh, like in that movie, he like killed Joker. There's that factory,
he strapped
and
the
all
bomb
that.
to a guy and chucked him off a bridge.
Yeah, in the comics, but in the books, in the movies, yeah, but in the comics, he's not supposed to kill people. He hardly ever kills people unless it's like some dark parallel universe thing. Mm-hmm. He's like, no shit, huh? All right. They went back to watching NASCAR or whatever it was. So
he's like, oh, there's an accident. I hope somebody gets killed. Need to make up for that conversation we just had. But
no, it's I think that by that point I get why tell me if you got this. There's something that stood out. I actually we talked about Snyder Cut on Octarock Talk with James, but I want to see if you notice this, because maybe it's just me, maybe my eyes are fucked up, maybe I'm looking too deep into something. Joker hands him the card and he says, when you want to know what I more or less says, when you want to know what I did to Robin and have the truce be over, just rip this card up. And when he takes the card, it kind of holds on Joker's hand for a minute, and it looks like there's almost like a hook in his glove, and it holds on that, and he's like, oh, you're good. And maybe I didn't see it clearly, or maybe I'm adding things that aren't there, but I almost took it like there was like a string at the end of that card and it was going to blow up or something once he pulled it, but Batman did something to sever it or something and has the card, and Joker's like, oh, you're good. You know what I'm talking about?
Because he does say, oh, you're good. Maybe that mine's like, okay, I'll say this, if these are the perfect like moments that, like, if you would have saw this in theaters, like on a big screen, you probably would have saw that real well, but some of those things get kind of lost when you're watching it at home. I bet you that might have been kind of it, because I was kind of wondering exactly what was going on there,
Because it looks like it's holding onto his hand, and I thought I saw a hook sticking out of his glove. Mm-hmm. So I'm not entirely. Maybe as he went to grab it, he just like plucked Joker with a little like needle, like fuck you. You know what I mean? Maybe that's all it was. But it just held on his hand for a second. He says, "Oh, you're good." Like. And this is just me trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to kind of relook at that scene and kind of see what exactly was going on there. But no, I think that does sound kind of like, well, that makes sense, because that seems like a total Joker thing to have anyways, is have the card on a string anyway. And it does something.
Like pull a top cat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But what's also that scene too kind of remind me of is almost that last Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Batman Last Night on Earth. It almost kind of had that sort of feel, like that, even though there's the other crew there with him too, but it almost kind of reminded me like, Batman and the Joker kind of having to work together and go through this kind of apocalyptic kind of time.
Well, DC really likes putting their characters in a post-apocalyptic Mad Max world, because if you think back on it, there's a couple of books where they do something similar. There's Injustice, there's Last Night on Earth by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. There is, and I think it was pulled from this, Kingdom Come. Then there's also the one which I think this was pulling from. There's some Justice League. I never read this book, but I've read the synopsis on it. I want to find it. It's during Grant Morrison's run. They did something to save the world, and then we jump, like, a few years later. The world's fucked, and a bunch of characters are dead. And it's down to this ragtag team of survivors.
Legion?
Yeah, it wasn't Legion, think fuck. I want to say it was like a bunch of them, and a bunch of them ended up dying. Like, Batman was in the place of Desaad, and he had to do horrible things to get by, but now the opportunity has arisen, so now he has a chance to help out the Resistance. I want to say the last two characters alive are the Atom and Speedy, of all characters.
That's actually kind of a cool team up right there.
And the way they bring down Darkseid is they kind of do the Ant-Man and Hawkeye thing. Like, he shoots Atom on an arrow or something towards Darkseid, and he shrinks so small he's able to go through like this little like force field thing that Darkseid always has around him, which makes him almost like impenetrable for most people. But he manages to go through his eye, and then get bigger inside of him. And then just basically from the inside goes, "You're fucked," and just like shoots up the inside of his brain, killing Darkseid right there. But out of that triggers something, and they're able to set time back to stop them from ever doing whatever it is that ended the world in the first place.
Huh, that's actually kind of interesting in itself. Speedy he's like, "Here, take this giant bag of heroin I've been holding on to." Darkseid's he's never used it before, so you're going to shove this much into his course.
He doesn't have my tolerance. I saw a post. I gotta find a wall in our apartment. There's a poster of that Neil Adams, like, Speedy about to shoot up, like, "My ward is a junkie." Like, I saw a poster of that finally. I need a poster of that.
That'd be an amazing one to have.
Yeah, for a while I couldn't find it anywhere. It was one of those things like you could find it, maybe just print it out and make it all big, but it'll look all pixelated. But I found an official poster of it. Like, I need that.
Well, that'd be the most amazing thing to have, because I always go every single time Warner Brothers or I guess DCU asks, like, "What animated one should we do next?" Traveling Heroes. Come on, do that one.
And you know what? I honestly think they could. You could put that as whenever they like, we're doing the Green Arrow, Green Lantern movie. Like, awesome. Let's see the cover. It's just the live action version of that.
That'd be perfect.
Word bubbles and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something you don't see that on a movie poster anyways, the word bubbles, so you'd be a first there.
People are going to stop. Like, you know what? I'm not sure if it's going to be any good, but I just got to know. It's like most of the movie is just... It's not even the rest of Traveling Heroes. The rest of the movie is almost just Green Arrow and Green Lantern taking Speedy to AA.
Yeah, just kind of like a progressive story of like drug use and so on.
But I think that... Well, I was going to make an example before I went on that tangent. So DC really likes to do post-apocalyptic stuff with their characters, and I think that's what they... Like, let's just finally do this with the movies. But I honestly think that's something they could have waited like a movie or two down the line. Like, Darkseid seems a little big for your first Justice League movie. I think it should have been someone like Vandal Savage or Prometheus or maybe the Injustice Gang or something.
Well, I kind of think the same way too, because I feel like once you sort of do Darkseid, you like, it's almost like, in a sense, where do you go from there? You hit the biggest character right off the bat. It's not like, I feel like, granted, there's only so many characters you can go through of the real big ones, but like, I think there's kind of a build-up. It's almost kind of like, maybe even like, sometimes I always feel like you can do sort of like, you do kind of like the mid-sized like big guy first, then you can go to the real big
like Brainiac.
Yeah, and then like on the third one, you can almost maybe go to like maybe an alternative type weird one, but.
I think a good one, not to like go, I know, because this is the basis of the whole movie, and for the whole movie, the basis works, but I think it could have worked if you, just to make it less setup and less lore, you could have almost just done the Injustice Gang or Injustice League or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Or like what's another character like they never use anymore? Like Mongol or Despero.
Oh yeah. Kind of lead them in with those type of characters.
Saru.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, and even still with like the New Gods type ones, there's all kinds of characters you can kind of pull from even there. I was really hoping that Granny Goodness was going to show up when they kind of.
She pops up when they're in the portal, but she didn't say anything. You just stand there with her like shock stick.
Oh, okay, she was there. Because I was kind of wondering, like, that's like one of the best characters. I'm like, why is Granny Goodness not getting some lines?
I mean, I guess you could almost lead him in like that. I mean, I know that's kind of really. Let's really stretch the taffy out and see how before it snaps. But I guess you could almost do like this one, they're fighting Steppenwolf. Next one, they're fighting Granny Goodness. One after that, the Furies. Then Darkseid. You know.
Yeah.
So they might do something like that. But no, she was when they kill Steppenwolf and they throw like his body through when they do the whole like Roadhouse like, take him back! Just chokes him in the river. When they just do that with Steppenwolf. Like, after he's all like, I used to fuck guys like you in prison. And Wonder Woman cuts his head off.
Yeah, pretty much.
like you see, like, there's Desaad to the left and Granny Goodness standing there to the right.
Okay, well, because I was looking there and I was like, is that Granny Goodness? I don't know. It just, didn't look exactly like the comic book, so I was kind of wondering.
She didn't have, like, the long hair. Her hair was more, like... Looked kind of like Ellen DeGeneres if she worked out a lot.
Yeah, that's probably it. Well, I'm always used to Granny Goodness, especially in like the older comics, where like she literally just looks like someone's, evil crazy grandma.
Evil crazy grandma that's just jacked.
Yeah, jacked, but she's got like the grandma afro and the glasses.
Hello, it's Granny.
Yeah, so it's like that's what I always kind of pictured, but yeah. Well, I feel the way that this is sort of set up, I think that it sounds weird, but like it's not necessarily like the trilogy of Justice League. I feel like it's almost like Justice League Part 1, now there's Justice League Part 2, and it's like it's a double feature type thing. Because I picture that, like, let's just say they give Zack Snyder, they give him like the Francis Ford Coppola and Godfather Part 2, like, hey, do whatever you want. You know what I mean? You killed it on this one. Just go out and we'll let you, do your story. If you want to make another 4-hour, giant, enormous movie, go for it. I mean, come on, Zack Snyder's movies can't cost that much. They're all fucking they're like all like on a CG soundstage anyway. It's like I've seen the special features on every single one of Zack Snyder's movies. They've always been like that.
True.
They literally look like the cheapest movies known to mankind when you see behind the scenes of them.
That's what most blockbusters are now. Because I mean, you think about like Avengers Endgame. Like Endgame is like one of the biggest action movies ever made, but you really think about it, like it's people in wacky costumes. Half their costumes are green with weird little like motion capture dots all over it.
Yeah.
And then you got like they're on top of like a pile of like styrofoam rubble, and then with a big green screen behind them.
Yeah, well, I feel it's like the three people that kind of put that that kind of made that, sort of popular is George Lucas, Robert Rodriguez, and Scott Snyder. Those are like the three guys that pioneered like, hey, I don't want to leave this one room.
Let them come to me.
And it's funny because it's like I remember like when those movies first came out, like in like like the early 2000s and so on, is people were like, what? Like it just looks like all CG and so on. It's like that looks kind of cheap and whatnot. I mean, even myself, I used to kind of think of like, so I think is those movies do look kind of cheap and you can see the CG and so on. And it's funny how like nowadays it's like what all movies are, but nobody seems to almost notice it anymore.
Yeah, I mean the thing about a lot of the Star Wars movies is the CG did not age well. And I guess we'll see how these movies look in the next couple years. I mean, I want to say I watched Avengers, the first Avengers, a few months back, and the CG looked great. So
yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, I'm not saying the CG looks bad, but I can always notice that like you could tell what's real and what's not. I think that's kind of the thing is like there's a big difference between looking at like what like a ginormous production like something like a Dances with Wolves where everything's real. To like when like you look at these big kind of superhero movies and you're just like, I don't know, these guys' outfits aren't even real. You know what I mean? They're all wearing fucking pajamas and running around. I'm like Zack Snyder's play stand.
Well, at the first time I was caught off guard and I could not tell it was CG. Well, I knew parts of it were CG, but not all of it. Now I look at it, I could tell it's CG. But at the time, when I saw the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and there's the Bill Nighy character, the octopus guy, Davy Jones.
Davy Jones and his tentacles.
When I first saw him, I knew that certain things, because I knew that the puppetry couldn't be that intricate. There were certain things I knew that were CG, but I thought they were using CG to enhance and make it do certain things. I thought it was a guy in like makeup and prosthetics, but just like enhanced with CG. But then I'm like, oh, it's all CG.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like, okay, got me off guard there. But now most of the time I feel like I see something, I can tell it's CG. I mean, the other one, I know it's CG not because it looks bad, but just because you know that's impossible, is Dark Knight. Dark Knight, that looks very believable when Two-Face has half his face burnt off. It doesn't look CG at all.
Well, yeah, and Christopher Nolan's one of those kind of guys that doesn't use a lot of CG anyways.
He's very sparing with it, so he's careful. And so I'm wondering how Desaad and Darkseid are going to look like in 10 years. But I actually want to speak on this. I like Desaad's one of those characters, and I'm not going to say walking out of this movie. Well, I guess walking away from my couch after it's done. But I mean, like
walking out of this movie as I'm walking to the refrigerator, kind of like wondering what.
Desaad was a character I never really liked, and just because he seemed so snively and so like kind of like I'm a douchebag for no reason. Where even though he still is that to an extent, I feel like his presence was a little bit more ominous and it was a little bit more threatening. Not just like the crusty old fuck in a hood, just saying idle threats, trying to suck off Darkseid any chance he gets. You know what I mean? I could tell he just seemed a little bit more threatening to me. I liked what they did with him, even though he was there for exposition more than anything else.
Well, he used to have sort of that old-fashioned, almost like that 80s kind of like, you know, the villain always had like that one annoying sidekick that would always follow them around and whatnot. And I guess it's just like because it was free labor, he put up with it. I always feel like if you had to hire this guy and pay this guy out of pocket, you would never have him around. But I always feel that's kind of how it is. But he's like, well, you know what? It kind of saves. You know, I don't have to pay workman's comp on him and so on. Yeah, I can keep him around.
Well, since
he does the dirty jobs that nobody else wants to do because he always wants to be on my good side.
Well, that's another thing they did with some of the new gods is back in the old comics, or not the old comics, just the basic comics, like Desaad, Steppenwolf, and some of the Furies and all them. They looked like regular people in goofy, fucked up costumes. Where here it's like, oh no, Steppenwolf looks like an alien. Desaad looks like an alien. Granny Goodness is kind of off in the corner. She looks humanish, but I think that works for that character.
Yeah, well, and I think too back in the olden days, I think it felt like that was all you had to do. Was like, hey, it's like they're like humans on other planets, but they just evolved differently, you know. And I think that was just kind of how people kind of wrote and drew them and so on. Like, I don't think it necessarily needs to look like radical to be it, but you know, I think that was just more the difference of times and making things. Where now it's like,
also the small things like. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, nowadays, they're just like, hey, let's just make it, like, you know, look real, like, way different. So these guys, you can tell, are not anything of this, like, universe.
Now, I know that I know by now in DC Comics, it is established, like, okay, there's science fiction, there's magic, and in the realm of magic, there's, like, devil and religion type stuff. There are points in different adaptations of the comics as well as the shows where they try to present, like, Apocalypse, like that's hell. Like it's almost kind of like Doom. Like Doom is not in the center of the earth. Doom is a portal to another universe somewhere.
Yeah.
Or like Advent Rising. Is not Advent Rising. Advent. What's the Paul W.S. Anderson hell movie with Sam Neill? Is it Advent Rising or?
Yeah, I think so. Got it. I forgot that.
Or is that bad Xbox game? I can't remember.
Well, no, yeah, never mind. You're right. Advent Rising's that one for Xbox Original.
Advent. It's gonna bother me all day if I don't. Advent. I don't fucking know. Horror movie.
Yeah.
Event Horizon. Is that it? Event Horizon.
Maybe that's it right there.
It's Event Horizon. That's the one I'm thinking of. Event Horizon. Anyway, it's kind of like they try to pretend like that. Apocalypse is hell, and the Bible is just early accounts from. With these creatures they thought were from below or from the afterlife, but it's just they're aliens.
Yeah.
So, and I can kind of see them trying to do. That's how they present it in Smallville, of all things, as well as some other stuff. But I think when you have a character like Constantine there, that automatically dismisses all that. But I still think that something in this movie's universe, that's how they're trying to present this stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes kind of sense right there. Just give it, like, I think that's, well, I guess because, like, in the comic book, sometimes it always feels like, hey, you know, Apocalypse is this dude, and, you know, they got the different planets there, like the one where everything's kind of nice and so on. Of course, Apocalypse planet's like, fuck that nice planet right there. I want to make sure I take that over. You know, I'm going to send my kids over there because I don't feel like getting up.
It's like, I
got NASCAR on later today. Why am I getting up off the couch?
He likes to sit and ponder there. Like, I just would like to imagine thing. Just cut to like Darkseid, just sitting there looking all stoic, pondering. You know, his resting his chin on his fist, just looking. You see, he just has a shitty old black and white TV, watching fucking like Babe Ruth or something.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, you know, it takes a long time for this Earth programming to get to us.
Don't tell him that he misses the swing. Like, he misses, then he just, like, just stoically, just, like, stands up, puts his hands behind his back, walks to, like, you know, a lava waterfall or something. He's like, destroy Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, shit, he's pissed. His team lost.
He is, but,
should we tell him he's already dead? No.
We just got that in on, like, the telefax.
The babe failed me for the last time.
But yeah, no, I hope that if anything, though, that this Justice League, it does spark interest. I hope people are actually into it, you know. Maybe this kind of wins, because I feel like the thing is like, you don't really need to necessarily win over the DC fans. I feel like they're generally on board. It's sort of having to win over, it's like that middle ground section. Like, I mean, you're not going to win over the people that just love the living daylights out of Marvel. I don't think you're ever going to win them over, so you can just kind of bypass that section. But that middle section of people that are kind of wishy-washy, like, you know, I feel like hopefully this will be the one that kind of says, like, yeah, you know what, that Justice League one is actually pretty dialed in. I kind of dug it.
Yeah, I feel like that even, like, you know, people always make the Marvel fans versus DC fans. By this point, I feel like they're one and the same a lot of the time. You do get those people that I feel like you more get Marvel movie fans.
Yeah.
Who've never opened a Marvel comic or a DC comic, and they get kind of protective over, you know, they might be the ones attacking DC. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Well,
and, you know... Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just feel like you still just always see a lot of those people that just go like, the Marvel movies are so much better, but boo. Yeah, I'm not really talking about the comic book fans. I think once somebody's a comic book fan, I think they're a little bit more open-minded to like different choices and so on like that. You know, not saying that there isn't people that just like hardcore stick to one side or the other, but yeah, the movie-wise, it just seems like there's always those people that go like, you know, the Marvel movies are always better, but and it's just like, well, yeah. Go on with that attitude. Of course, everything's... If you tell yourself every single time that this thing's better than that thing, it's always going to be better in your mind.
Well, if I'm being 100% honest, I like Endgame more than this right here. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think that DC movies, I mean, don't like rein them in a little bit. Like, don't like, I mean, you know, because we see what happens when you give them limitless power, and then we see what happens when they try to, like, straddle them too much and keep them in a certain lane. I think there is something... I think DC movies definitely have, like, an expanded universe, have them in to be just as good as Marvel. I mean, we've already had some really good, like, let's just take Dark Knight off the table. So let's just talk about the expanded universe stuff. Like, we both really like Man of Steel. Aquaman's really fun.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, there is, like, Birds of Prey was different, but it was I thought it was at least a fun movie.
Yeah, that's one of the ones. That was one of the few I just didn't care for a whole lot. But
I
do agree that it is different. But like,
I liked it more the second time around watching it again. I can say. But that being said, though, I mean, movie wise, I mean, Marvel just has way more movies, and I think that if I'm being 100% honest, I think Marvel does have it down a little bit better. But I think DC can be there. It's not like it doesn't have a chance. It's not like it never can be better.
Oh yeah.
And they're this is definitely better than some of the Marvel movies. I like this way more than I like either the Ant-Mans or like
I love it, like you went to like the lowest. Like I like it more than the Ant-Mans.
Well, people really like Ant-Man. People
Well,
really like the first
Ant-Man
one.
1's really good. Let's be honest, but the second one,
Ant-Man 1's really good.
The second
Ant-Man
one.
1's really good. Yeah.
But well, like for me, it's like I like granted, like for me as you know, of course, I like this Justice League probably more than almost any of the other Marvel ones and so on. I mean, I always throw people's Justice or their Marvel thing off because I always tell them my favorite Marvel movie is the Daredevil director's cut one. So people get scared. Or I say that in Punisher Warzone, they're like, "What?"
Punisher Warzone is very underrated. I was just talking MCU, but no, I get you.
Yeah, but it's like
Punisher Warzone is very underrated.
But you know what I mean? Like at the same time, like you know what this also I kind of like too is the fact that I will say with the Josh Whedon Justice League one, even though don't get me wrong, I like that movie. Like I love the living daylights out of that movie. I saw it a couple times in theaters and so on. But like that movie was doing the thing where it's just like trying to lean a little bit more into the Marvel camp. I'm kind of glad because this movie goes like, no, fuck it, we ain't leaning the Marvel camp. We're sticking to what we're being DC and we're going to be more serious. Like, and I kind of like how it kind of goes with like keeping that train kind of going. You know, instead of trying to be, because I feel like that's my favorite part a lot of times about movies is that you have choices. And I know a lot of people want to get it to come in the dead center where like they're both the same, but I think it's nice when it's like, hey, you could almost have a goofy Marvel movie where it's, you know, almost kind of slapsticky, but then if you want, you got serious DC on the other side, so you have it. Not where you get to like the center point where like they're kind of slapsticky and kind of serious, but you know, not real falling hard on one side or the other.
I could actually say this. This might be controversial for some people, but this is not a surprise to you. I like this movie more than all three of the Iron Man movies. I like this one way more than.
Oh yeah, I was just say. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've come around to the Iron Man movies, but like, I feel like there's like not even a comparison when it comes down to that. Shit, I like probably Suicide Squad more than the Iron Man movies.
Really? Oh well, well, it's one of those things that like on a scale, like would I prefer more in the comics? I prefer DC over Marvel. Not that Marvel doesn't make good stuff.
Yeah.
I just prefer them more, and I usually keep up with DC more. Lately, most of the Marvel stuff I've been reading has been Marvel stuff from the '90s. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as DC goes, I feel like the movies, Marvel, they just got it down. They got more of a focused, narrowed in, like theme and formula. And they got it down, and they generally know when to pull back on something and when to lean in on something. Like I feel like they have this good balance. DC is still kind of figuring that out, but at the same time, maybe they don't need to figure it out. Maybe they just got to make movies and not try and make it all connected. Yeah. So we'll see where they might be leading back into the connection thing because they already this already teased up some of the stuff for like Flashpoint because Barry Allen is the one that saves the day by going back in time.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there already teased up stuff for the possibility of Flashpoint, and that's what the next Flash movie is going to be. So only he's apparently universe hopping than time traveling.
Yeah, well, that's all I say is I just hope that this right here just sort of sets DC almost more in a path because it feels like. You know, ever since like the Zack Snyder kind of disappeared for a moment, it's like it was almost like they kind of went into a weird limbo. And they, you know, I mean, it's cool that they tried to. I think you can have like the continual movies and then like do the experimental movies all at the same time, like because I don't like when everything's continued because then I feel like you're stuck in one groove. But I just hope that like just let Zack Snyder kind of just finish off this for however long it goes, you know, and then do your weird experimental movies on the side, you know, and then kind of decide which ones you want to pick from. I mean, it's really the formula's been done perfectly. It's in DCU, you know, you have certain things that continue, you have certain things that are adaptations, and you have certain things that are kind of original, and then you also have your experimental movies, whether you know they do good or be kind of weird like Batman Ninja, but at least the whole thing is that you try something different.
To kind of jump off what you said there, and I also said this on Octo Rock Talk with James. I think that the theatrical DC movie should do something like this. They should have like, okay, here is our like MCU equivalent. Here's the thing that continues forward. We have a secondary label. Here is DC Earth 2. That could be or whatever. That could be the label for our other world movies. That's not means they're all in the same world or anything, but that means that this is. And you could just have that label at the beginning of whatever DC movie, just so you know you're watching a parallel universe movie, not main continuity. By this point, not everyone's going to get it, but majority of people are going to get it. Yeah. So I feel like you could do something like that. And there's another point I was going to make before that. Snyder apparently said he doesn't want to make any more after this. He says this is just it's been too long, this and that. He just wanted to end it here and end on a good note with Warner Brothers for these movies, I guess. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe he might come back around, or they might even do something like, hey guys, here's my plans for what I wanted to do. Here is how I would do it. If you want to hire someone else to execute that, cool. You could put me on as an executive producer and give me a story credit and call it good.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple choices you can kind of go with. Probably one, as I said, if it does good and it's like, hey, this is successful, there's money flowing in and so on, that might change his mind. Because I think that's always kind of how it is. You always go, yeah, I don't feel like doing it. Well, like, yeah, you don't feel like doing it when everybody's calling you an ass, but maybe like once like people start to like you again, then I think it's different. Because I feel like that's the George Lucas thing. Is you got the point where you're like, fuck you guys are just bitching about everything out there, so I'm not doing it anymore. Like, and I kind of get that, where it's just one of those ones. Yeah, if you got a bunch of like little like slimy bitches just kind of going around you and just telling you like why you fucking suck and should die every single day, yeah, it's kind of tough. But I think if someone's like up there, if you got enough people doing the other way around, be like, you know what, that Zack Snyder's cut was fucking awesome. Let's see fucking more of it. All he really needs is just, I feel like just one more movie, one more Justice League, finish off his run, and it'd be done. I mean, and granted, yeah, if somebody else wants to direct, I don't think that's out of the question.
Mm-hmm. And going back, because you pointed out this movie's rated R. I think this movie, it's just really the 3 fucks they say, and then there's like maybe a couple little extra splotches of blood. But this movie could have this almost felt like kind of like the unrated version back in 2002 on DVD. Yeah. Where this is it got kind of that vibe. This could have easily been PG-13 to speak on that.
I'll say this, I think it literally is PG-13. I feel like they only slapped the R on there to make it feel more serious. Like, because, I mean, like, this day and age, like, the little bit of blood that's in there is, like, you could probably get away in a PG movie with that. And, like, even the fucks, they're so little in it that, like, shit, the movie's 4 hours long, so they're almost so spread out, too.
There should be a fuck ratio to the minute. That's almost how it should be,
Yeah.
It doesn't even use, like, a fuck for every hour. It's only 3 of those hours. There you go.
I remember 3. I only remember 2 of them.
There's, like, 3. There's, like,
there's the
Batman tells Joker to go fuck himself.
Cyborg says fuck the universe or whatever, and then
fuck the world. And then there's the terrorist that Wonder Woman stops, and like, shut that fucking kid up.
Oh yeah, that's right. I do remember that in the very beginning. So yeah, but like it's like, yeah, this day and age, shit, I've seen PG-13 movies that have more fucks than that. So. But exactly. As I said, I think they did that just to make it happen. It has more of a pristine feel. I feel like when you say your movie's rated R, it's almost like this is for adults, not necessarily like this is for adults, but like it just gives it that like extra emphasis of like, hey, it's serious. We're not making this like a kiddie like slapstick fest. I also think it's also one of those. It ain't fucking Marvel too. I think that there's always that little bit of a nudge kind of going in there,
I feel like, though, this does have a better chance of having something, maybe not the exact division of what Zack Snyder originally had, but it has a better chance. And I don't take criticism from this site too seriously. I mean, Dave Chappelle controversy with Rotten Tomatoes, case in point, he had like a 2% because they only had like 3 or 4 critics actually review it. But still, this is kind of a good example of how people look at it. I looked up what this movie has on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and for critics, it has a 74%, which is miles above every other Zack Snyder DC movie. Well, and then,
I will say,
but then you get to audience. You get to audience, though. You get to audience, and audience is 96. Yeah. So there you go, right now. And who's really spending most of the money on this thing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's one of those ones. I'll say this, like, the Rotten Tomatoes, if you kind of look at it, like, you could say that's the shitty audience review. So if the shitty audience actually likes it, not too bad. That's how I kind of look at it. I guess you could always look at it like that. It's almost like if you get kind of just like all those kind of people out there that generally just seem to hate on everything, and then they actually like it, well, I guess that's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really take Rotten Tomatoes seriously, but at least it's always kind of a good measure of what what does Hollywood look at it as? You know what I mean? That was even the point.
What does the cynical audience look at it as? I
The
guess
cyn-
that's the
yeah.
best way to sort of say it. Like,
And that was also, they were using, I remember back when the first Justice League came out, they were using that to introduce, I don't even know if it's still around, but it was like one of the worst like video review, like, hey, this is Rotten Tomatoes, we're giving our review on Justice League. And then they like gave it like a very low rating and all that, and they're using this to present it, and they're trying to tee up, they're holding back the reviews and the scoring for like, to like pitch up and get their stupid fucking like video show going. And I don't even think it's still around, you know, because it was like two super plastic ass people like talking about it, like, you know, like, I don't know what emotion is, but here's what I think about that, you know.
they're probably working at GameStop now.
Probably.
I feel like the GameStop, like the IGN ads, they always have those type of people there.
Hey, we like video games too. You kids like the video games. What's the newest thing you played on the Dreamcast? Like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's just like,
I'm a little surprised to know what a Dreamcast is, but okay.
yeah, exactly, one of those ones. But
I'm sorry, it does not compute. Let me re-upload. Oh, that's what's going on. Okay.
yeah, but yeah. So if anything, everybody should go out and make sure they check this out to make it seem popular. Even if you turn on the background and don't even watch it, at least it will make HBO think that you did, and make Warner Brothers think that you did. You know, at least it will all work out, and see where it kind of takes us from there. Because I think this actually will end up doing pretty well. I also feel too, maybe just kind of being there. You know, it's like one of those ones, like, if this came out in theaters, there'd be a lot of people like, it's a long movie, maybe I won't watch it. But maybe if it's at home, you can kind of casually watch it. You can watch it in parts. You can even put it on background during Thanksgiving, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, it's there just to kind of, like, be there, and maybe more people might just check it out because of that.
Yeah, it's a good point. No, I definitely recommend it too. Like, I think it's a little, I think it's perfect as a streaming thing. If this went to theaters, like, okay, you can cut this, and this out, and make it like a 3-hour movie. But for streaming, it's perfect, because it's basically just getting the movie he wanted to make, plus I think all the extra deleted scenes combined with, like, you know, what would have been like mid-credit trailer teaser stuff.
Yeah, because I could see, you know, some of the average people might find this movie to be definitely long-winded. I will say, like, there's probably that extra hour that's probably going to throw maybe the average audience off a bit, you know? But I think for anybody who's into the DC and all that kind of stuff, like, it's all cool. I just can't wait for this thing to actually be on Blu Ray. That's the thing. I feel like that's all it's missing now, is just, like, having a nice copy of it, you know, to watch and go from there. But beyond all that fun stuff, you can always go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comic books like The Pizza Boys, old animations, and more fun stuff. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And I'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.